Hello, welcome to Monster Masquerade. My name is Fae, and I have a very special guest with me today, and I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is MoshPatt. My pronouns are he, they. I'm a chaotic gremlin that plays video games for fun and charity, and also I watch a ton of wrestling.
Do you prefer Mosh or Pat?
Either or. Mosh is fine.
Okay.
Mosh. We'll go with Mosh.
Cool. I've seen people use both on Twitter, and I'm like, I want to use the correct ones.
I'm not picky. I'm just here.
Cool. But yeah, today we will be talking about wrestling. Thank you, Piper. You're so excited. I am also a huge wrestling fan. I feel like a lot of people who are into the horror genre are also into wrestling. Like, they're two fandoms that overlap like a ton. And so I wanted to talk to you about monsters of wrestling, both like the concept of a monster within the industry, and then also like supernatural characters within wrestling as well.
Oh yeah.
How long have you been a wrestling fan?
Let's see. I've been a wrestling fan since like the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Like as a kid, I used to sit like 3 inches from the TV watching Monday Night Raw. It was a whole thing.
Mm-hmm. See, we were a SmackDown household because it was on the CW, and that was when that was available on cable TV, or like the antenna TV. Yeah, no, very much the same. I remember, like, even from a young age, my dad and his brothers were into wrestling, and they would play like the old school like PS1 WWF games, and eventually that translated to us watching the TV shows. I have 2 younger siblings, so of course, like, we would have matches at home and get in trouble for that. But like, yeah, I definitely at my height of like wrestling interest at like 2008 probably, with like the Undertaker and Batista and all that good stuff. I definitely fell off like probably after high school, and then didn't get back into it until like 2021. I feel like I think I was just bored one day, and I was like, hey, I noticed that WWE has been publishing their old Royal Rumbles to YouTube. Like, I could just watch those in the background. And I think They do that conveniently, like around the Royal Rumble, to like drum up interest, which makes a lot of sense. Right. So I think I had casually mentioned it on Twitter or on stream, and a friend was like, hey, this year's Royal Rumble's coming up. Like, you can watch it with us in Discord. And ever since then, I've been like hooked again. It's so much fun. I love how campy it can be. Although right now, like, the stuff with Sami Zayn and the Usos is just like actually compelling storytelling.
It's cinema.
It's so good. Like, I remember talking to Nyrene about like that story in particular, and they sent me a screenshot from a Twitter post that was of Kevin Owens, who was knocked out like after the Royal Rumble match with Roman, and and they were like, I don't understand what this is, and I just sent back in all caps, like, he can't hurt his friend, like, you don't understand. It's so good.
Oh yeah.
Do you have a franchise that you were particularly interested in?
For the most part, I was a Raw kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched Raw during like the height of John Cena, before he had the Fruity Pebbles t-shirts, as The Rock would call them.
Right.
This was back when he was like, you know, in between rapper and kind of getting to that point where everybody was like, okay, we get it. You win all the time.
Big match, John. Can't be stopped.
So like that was all of that was like fun to watch with like him, Randy Orton, Edge, and Triple H, and then just like constantly. I didn't get to watch any of the pay-per-views as a kid because my parents didn't like wrestling. So I had to like commandeer the downstairs area and just be like, all right, everybody get out of here. I'm watching fucking wrestling. So, and then I tried to do it on Fridays and they were like, no, we're watching, I don't know, Dateline or something. It's like, all right, fine, whatever. So like I knew about SmackDown in passing, but Raw was where most of my attention went, and TNA for some reason for a brief period of time.
See, I never could get into TNA because I just like, obviously they had their own unique talent, but like most of my knowledge is like, oh, that's where wrestlers go to bide their time until they retire, essentially. Which is not a fair judgment of that show at all, but
I mean,
a lot of careers I feel like have died there tragically.
You're not wrong. They had some good years, but it's in Florida, so it's the Florida of wrestling. It's the retirement home.
It's a Vince Russo joint, right? Like that's where he was banished after the Monday Night Wars.
I think so. He showed up there, I think, for a brief period of time. And I think Hogan and Bischoff showed up there as well. And there's all this like weird backstage drama because none of Russo doesn't like any of those guys. And it's a whole thing.
Because he's like, I don't know, he's such a dude, bro. And like the stuff he writes is kind of trashy and or like at most ends up resulting in like a insert object on a pole match, and that's not like super interesting.
I'm pretty sure Vince Russo is the reason that most of the early 2000s were filled with bra and panty matches.
Oh yeah, that would
want to say that's him. So yeah, if that puts in perspective.
Truly awful. Like the industry had like no concept of what a woman was or what they were capable of. Yeah, I have not gotten super into like AEW. I will see it like in a distance. I feel like I catch up on summaries with that one, like on Twitter after the fact. I've maybe only watched like a couple of AEW matches with like Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson. I've never gotten into like New Japan Pro Wrestling, but anytime I see clips from it, I'm like, what the hell? Like, this is so cool. I really want to. I have some friends who are like diehard New Japan fans.
Oh yeah, New Japan is where wrestlers go to show off.
So are you familiar with the concept of a monster in wrestling?
Yes. In the terms of wrestling, I would view a monster as either somebody that is like an indestructible force or that is marketed for a time, usually as an indestructible force, or just kind of somebody that, you know, does the little psychological warfare, but like with mystical, like spoopy, creepy stuff.
That's a pretty good definition. I know, like, classically a monster is just a big fucking dude. Usually, your folks who are 6'5" plus and, you know, just like unstoppable. Like famously, Andre the Giant, King Kong Bundy, Yokozuna, Goldberg, if you like, counts as a monster because he had that undefeated streak for so long. They're usually not my favorite types of matches to watch because oftentimes these guys also aren't like the most mobile.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of interest in watching like a Great Khali match. Like he can be entertaining for sure, but he is not the most like technical wrestler.
You know what's funny?
What?
So Great Khali, that was like when he came to WWE, that was near the end of his career. He was actually a lot more agile and mobile in like India and Japan
Really?
And there's like, yes, you look up videos, there's just Great Khali, as he is, like when he came to WWE, just like throwing the wildest kicks and like running the ropes. It's a whole thing.
Huh. That's interesting. Andre the Giant, too, like, used to like fly across the ring and do like a ton of drop kicks. And then it was like Vince McMahon's dad who was like, no, we're going to take this guy and like have him just be this immovable object who just hits like a fucking truck. I feel like he kind of like set the tone for future monsters. Hulk Hogan, as shitty as he is as a person, essentially made his like early career out of fighting these giant figures. Some of my other favorite ones are like Vader. I don't know if we mentioned Kane and Undertaker yet. They definitely fall into both categories where they're unstoppable giants and they're also like kind of supernatural.
Oh yeah, I would even throw the Fiend into that mix.
Yeah, for sure. Bray Wyatt, like starting off with swamp magic and going into demonic stuff. Like, see, but then you got to be careful when you're going with the supernatural stuff because sometimes it can just come off as like silly. And most folks don't have as much patience for that. He had a feud with Randy Orton and they had like a haunted house match or something. And at one point, like that. Randy Orton's spitting up black gunk and people are like, what is happening here? Their feud wasn't the most popular to begin with, but like I think after that, folks really were just like not super interested. Definitely around the time that we were both super interested in WWE, like Kane and Undertaker were huge deals. Like obviously they have been since the beginning of their career, but like the Undertaker was kind of in a resurgence. Like he had some great feuds with Batista and Edge, and every WrestleMania match that I saw him in during that time period was like really cool to watch and really compelling. The streak is like this iconic thing that for over 20 years like could not be overturned because this guy just seemed impossible to stop.
He really was. It's just like, I think he even fought other monsters. Like I'm pretty sure Mark Henry's in there somewhere.
I would consider Mark Henry a monster for sure. Like he wasn't in a lot of the lists that I saw when I was looking it up, but like, yeah, definitely.
At the very least, I consider Hall of Pain Mark Henry because that dude was indestructible.
not what was it? Was it God? Was he Dr. Sexy? Was that what it?
No, sexual chocolate.
That's what
I would not consider sexual chocolate a monster.
Although there's a very horrific subplot where Mae Young gives birth to a disembodied hand. That's a little horrific.
That's a monster.
It's just so good. I didn't realize for several years. I knew that Brock Lesnar had like broken the streak. I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't know how you feel about that personally. I didn't realize that he also lost to Roman Reigns like immediately after that. So
oh yeah,
like I had no idea. I think because that was during like COVID and there was just not a lot of buzz around it. But like I don't know, it kind of bums me out in a major way.
I mean, I think it's fine that Lesnar broke the streak. I feel like the streak should have been used to bring up Bray Wyatt. Because they did have a match that Wyatt lost, and I feel like Wyatt should have been the one to break that streak.
Yeah, I'm also just not the biggest fan of Brock Lesnar. He has gotten like considerably better because they're letting loose on the reins, I feel like, and he's been more silly. Like he's got this whole cowboy thing to him now. It's honestly very funny, but like I don't know what it is. I think it's because he was never like that great on the mic, and I love a good promo. He certainly had like Paul Heyman to help him out in that regard, but I just was not super interested in any of his matches. Like I feel like he's the obvious choice, especially when Vince McMahon is in charge, because that is exactly his type of wrestler.
Oh, yeah.
That year that I got into the Royal Rumble was probably the worst for me to do it because both Brock Lesnar and Ronda Rousey won, and it's just like,
oh no,
this is fucking boring. It's fucking damn it. Also, Ronda Rousey is a turf and like a Sandy Hook truther. Like,
Ronda Rousey's the worst person.
God damn, I fucking hate her.
Fuck Ronda Rousey.
And then she ruined Mortal Kombat with her dry-ass perforence.
She somehow managed to ruin. Is it Raid Shadow Legends? She ruined Raid. She took Raid Shadow Legends and ruined it. You know how impossible that is?
She sucks in the ring. Like, she can't deliver a promo to save her life. Like, fucking get rid of her.
I can't think of anything positive to say about Ronda Rousey.
No, nothing. There's nothing. Liv more. Nope, that's the character from iZombie. That's not right.
Liv Morgan is a
that's the one I'm thinking of. Liv Morgan beat her to win a title, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But then in the rematch, she kind of cheated to win, and that's a big no-no when you're the babyface. So, like, people quickly turned on her. Omos is another one that I'm also like, this dude can't do a whole lot of anything, and they just keep putting him in matches.
Somehow he has another WrestleMania match against Lesnar.
That's a Vince McMahon thing for sure. Like,
there is a clip from the New Day podcast that is Big E like yelling obnoxiously, talking about big men slapping meat. And that is because his dream match is Goldberg.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what I think about when I see this. It's just Big E just like standing in the corner, just like big men slapping meat all around the ring.
I want to see two big men with big with big chests and big muscles bumping meat. That's why I'm here. That's why I watched wrestling as a kid. You want your 5-star matches? You want your 30-minute classics? Not me. Big meaty men slapping meat. That's what I want.
I fucking love Big E. Oh my god, he was a monster for a little bit when he was his Big E Langston persona.
Yeah. 5-count Big E was a monster. He was pretty. I mean, I don't know. He was kind of indestructible.
Mm-hmm.
I think once they put him on the main roster and like paired him with Ziggler, he like lost a little bit of shine.
Mm-hmm. Delegated to that bodyguard role that a lot of these kinds of wrestlers fall into eventually.
Oh yeah,
Big Show was also a very iconic monster. When he first started off, he was in fiction Andre the Giant's son, and he was going to get revenge on Hulk Hogan. That. Yeah, I think he was just called the Giant, or maybe Giant Junior or something like that. It's when he had long hair. And then he did Jingle All the Way soon after. Big Show kind of suffers from like his inability to stay either a heel or a babyface. Like the way he flip-flops back and forth, it's kind of silly.
Big Show's just a very emotional boy.
Mm-hmm.
It was like one time during like one storyline, he was a good guy, and then a week passed and a pay-per-view hit, and then he turned heel, and then he immediately turned into a good guy again, and we're just all like whiplashed from this.
Just like, what did this accomplish? Like, I don't know. I also really like an unexpected, like, supernatural turn. Finn Balor coming out as the demon is so cool. He only busted out like when his storyline is like super desperate and supposed to be like this ultra dark part of him, and then he comes out like in total body paint, usually that's like referential to comics or video games. Like, it's very cool.
Oh yeah. So did you ever play the very controversial WWE 2K20?
I have not played that one. I, for jokes, downloaded 2K18 on my Switch because it was like 80% off. And then I was looking at reviews and it was like, oh yeah, the Switch port is easily the worst among them. And I was like, well, fuck.
Oh no.
But no, what happened in 2K20?
So Monster-wise, they decided they were going to do like, goofy DLCs, or like, not actual like wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
But there was one DLC, I think it was the beginning DLC, that was like kind of haunted wrestlers.
Uh-huh.
And there is one of like a mystical demon Finn Balor, like with magical powers and shit. And like, I want to say there was like King of Darkness Aleister Black. It was a whole thing.
I wonder if that's like a tie-in with that weird mobile game that's like fantasy WWE.
No, it wasn't. It was for the Fiend. There was like other separate expansions. They're just like, oh, this one's like, techno 90s. And you've got Marty McFly, Johnny Gargano. It's just like, what?
That's so weird. Why would they do that?
This is why people didn't like 2K20.
I think with the last, like, I can't remember. It might have been 2018 is where it started to go like downhill. Cause I think they had fired Ukes, who had done like all the SmackDown versus Raw games, which have some fantastic gimmick matches like Buried Alive and Inferno matches. Like, I had so much fun playing those growing up, and most of them that had a story mode usually involved like breaking the Undertaker's streak. I streamed SmackDown vs. Raw 2010, like Road to WrestleMania with with the Create a Superstar. I did that on stream once, and like I was breezing through it pretty well, and then I got to the very end against Undertaker, and I was like, oh yeah, like I can do this no problem.
Haha, you thought.
I thought, but the streak was too powerful. When I had played it as a child, I beat him like no problem. But then like no matter how many finishers I was doing in this run, like he just wouldn't go down. And then I kept getting injured, and then there's a cutscene that plays, and then you're surrounded by these dudes in black robes, and then it goes back to gameplay, and they just like keep swarming you and coming out of nowhere until you're defeated. Like it's kind of dark. I was not expecting to be like overtaken like that in the video game.
Oh yeah, in canon, Undertaker has a cult.
It's so the Ministry of Darkness,
and he crucifies people. That's an actual thing he does on TV.
Who was Big Boss Man? Was he the one that like literally got hung from a noose at WrestleMania or one of the pay-per-views?
Yes, he got hung from a noose at one of the pay-per-view. Stone Cold got crucified. I want to say Stephanie McMahon also got crucified and was supposed to be like a sacrificial bride.
Oh no.
Like, Undertaker was on some shit back in the day.
I love the the Buried Alive with Paul Heyman, where they just like cover him in cement, and he fully I think he was fighting the Dudley Boys at the time or something, and Paul Heyman just fucking dies, and they never reference it.
Was like, I think Paul Heyman died, like, or not Paul Heyman, Paul Bearer.
Paul Bearer, that's what yes.
Paul Bearer died like 3 or 4 times throughout the entirety of his WWE career.
Bless
like-
Paul Bearer.
So wild.
Did you know Paul Bearer is Paul Bearer is the son of one of the original Ronald McDonald's, like the clown
What?
mascot. Yeah.
Speaking of monsters.
The thing I love about Paul Bearer is that, like, he always gave it his all. Like, he was fully committed to the bit. Like, his silly little voice and the whole relationship with Kane and The Undertaker, I feel like has not really been replicated. Something that I forget a lot is that Edge and Christian were also part of the Ministry of Darkness for a bit. Like, they were vampires.
Yes. I think they were underneath the, like, head vampire Gangrel. Who was just, like, surfer vampire that wore, like, dress clothes to the ring and would, like, mist blood over the audience. Just, like, spit blood on them.
It's like they were trying to capitalize on the Lost Boys, like, 5 years too late.
It was a whole. They used to come up out of, like, the floor in, like, a ring of fire.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird. While we were talking, I have looked up the very weird DLC
Okay.
for 2K. So, speaking of monsters, you have Frankenstrowman, which is Braun Strowman but Frankenstein.
Okay. Already kind of sure.
You've got Demon King Finn Balor.
Cool.
So it's just Finn Balor, but with, like, scaly skin and horns and whatnot, and it's a whole thing. Fed Up Sheamus, which is like a zombie hunter Sheamus.
What?
For some reason, Rusev as a pilgrim. Don't know anything about that.
Like, to tie into into the oh god, what is it? The witch, the vitch.
Maybe. You've got, of course, the Fiend Bray Wyatt, but you also have the Swamp Father Bray Wyatt.
What?
Which is just Bray Wyatt, but green.
Why?
Just very green.
He's already kind of a swamp father.
You've got Unleashed Randy Orton, which is just Randy Orton, but he's a snake.
I am looking at these pictures now, and just these last three or four. Oh my god, 5! They're just all zombies.
Yeah, you've got Wicked Aleister Black, who, if I remember correctly, when you play, like, because there is a story mode surrounding this, he like teleports around the ring and, like, floats in the air and does, like, all this magical shit. And then you've got multiple zombies of, like, Cesaro, Cassius Ohno or Chris Hero, Robert Roode, Sami Zayn, and Sasha Banks for some reason.
God, I hope Sami Zayn comes out as a zombie during this WrestleMania. I think that would be the best way to end the bloodline.
Yes, he just eats the bloodline.
Just get weird with it. There was a I don't know if you watched it. There was a match that they did to tie into, it was a brand sponsored episode that tied into Zack Snyder's fucking zombie movie, Army of the Dead.
Oh, wait, I remember hearing about this, but I didn't watch it. Is it the Miz match?
This was The Miz versus Damian Priest in the Army of the Dead. So they're just fighting around. There are zombies surrounding the ring. And at the end of it, one of them just fucking dies. Like...
Look, they were getting pretty desperate during the quarantine.
I guess so.
I guess I'll give him a pass. I don't really.
That was WrestleMania. The Miz eaten alive by zombies at WWE WrestleMania. That's awesome. I think that's the same WrestleMania where Undertaker straight up like throws AJ Styles off of a building and kills him.
Oh yeah, like. That was a decent match. Your like graveyard, it's like boneyard match or whatever the heck it is.
But also, he was back to being the American badass, like he was his biker form.
Well, you see, Undertaker is very very Undertaker. That's how I'll describe it. And he really wanted to have his motorcycle because they kept on releasing weird American flag and like, I want to say at one point, I'm going to ruin The Undertaker for you.
No, it's okay.
There exists a Undertaker Blue Lives Matter shirt.
Oh no.
Yes, I think that was around this time. So Undertaker really wanted to be the American badass.
I mean, he's best friends with Kid Rock. Like, what can you expect?
Ooh.
If you want to talk about the real horrors of the WWE, like the number of superstars who I have found out as an adult are like ultra conservative. Fucking Glenn Jacobs Kane is
good. He needs to get off Twitter.
Super fucking MAGA mayor of what is it?
Is it Knox? It's Knox County, not
yes.
Knoxville. I remember that.
Mm-hmm. It's just like, God damn, like I need y'all to stop, please. You're ruining things. It's not surprising. I feel like if you are friends with Vince McMahon or if you do business with him for that long, like you're probably you're probably gonna be leaning that way. God, now that makes sense. It is very disappointing, but it makes sense.
Yeah. Sorry, everybody listening, that I just ruined The Undertaker for you. But yeah.
No, because he is like the most iconic monster, both in terms of like unstoppable and also like mystical or supernatural. Like he was so dedicated to the bit that he is only just now talking about his experiences in and out of the ring.
Oh yeah. He didn't break character for like over 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Very cool dedication. And I do like hearing the stories, but also, fuck that guy. I'm gonna stick with Stone Cold. Like I've
Stone Cold seems nice.
Yeah, he's got a ranch. He's got kittens that he likes to take care of now. And I'm pretty sure he's like very pro-vaccine and just like, I feel like he'd be an ally. I feel like he'd be a queer ally for sure.
Yeah, I can see that.
He would be the cool uncle at Thanksgiving.
Speaking of monsters, because I think this was around 2008, and it crossed my mind just now. Have you heard of the Boogeyman?
Yes! Yeah, I'm the Boogeyman. God. What a weird character that they never did anything with in terms of like titles or any, like he was just there to be a nuisance and to gross people out.
The Boogeyman deserved the World Heavyweight Championship.
Truly.
And I will not hear otherwise from anybody.
Man is coming out here with worms in his mouth, like having to do bits with Jillian Michaels, was that the awful singer?
Jillian Hall. She had like a growth on the side of her. She had a kayfabe growth on the side of her face.
Did he?
He did. It? Yes, he ate it.
So nasty.
There is a moment of time in like some random SmackDown that he just like corners her and like licks the fucking growth and then just eats it. Just like, come on. Even Child Mosh was just like, come on.
No, please don't. I'm pretty sure he's a yoga instructor now. Like, I think he retired, and that is.
Well, yeah, So the Boogeyman, the guy behind the Boogeyman, actually was in WWE Tough Enough, and he lied about his age.
Huh.
So, like, they wanted, like, younger guys, like, late 20s, early 30s, maybe, like, early 20s or something. The Boogeyman came there at, like, 40 years old and, like, forged his driver's license.
What?
And then he had, like, I think he forged it. I want to say he either forged it or he lied on the paperwork. And there was an instant where they were just like, what is your age on your actual driver's license? And like, he finally revealed it was 40, and they like kicked him off the show. And then like a couple years later, he just shows up as the Boogeyman. I'm just like, sometimes lying works out, I guess.
I'm glad it worked out. I feel like he probably his character takes the most inspiration from like Papa Shango, who was not at all popular, but like the Boogeyman makes it work. I would not have thought that he was that old, because like he was still very shredded, like under all that makeup, and he had like a fake mane on. Like, I don't know, there was a lot going on with him.
He would smash clocks on his head.
I also just love when people come out from under the ring. Like, it's one of my favorite wrestling tropes.
Oh yeah, Kane was really good about that. It's like dragging people to quote unquote hell.
Do you remember the failed character Kizarny?
Okay, so my best friend TJ is obsessed with the several week-long run of Kizarny and the singular match he had. Because he would show up on some... I would count Kizarny as a monster, even though we didn't really get to see what he could do.
Right.
He would show up on his weird circus promos and just be like, welcome to the Kizarnival.
Totally nonsensical. Like, I'm not that scared.
Actually, I think it might actually be a language. I think this might be a thing they do.
Wait, really?
I think Cardi speak is like actually that.
That's wild. That's so wild. What? Poor Kizarny never made it into the video games, unfortunately. Can you imagine the powerhouse that he would have been?
Oh, gosh.
God, that is so good. Do you have a particular favorite type of supernatural match?
It's not necessarily supernatural, but I do thoroughly enjoy the like roundabout of a good casket match.
Yeah. I don't know if Undertaker, he has lost more casket matches, I feel like, than he has won.
Yes, there is one that I really love with him. It was the Randy Orton one, where Randy Orton's dad came out with him. It was like Randy Orton and his dad, Cowboy Bob Orton, were feuding with the Undertaker. They beat the Undertaker. They win the casket match and everything. So fast forward to like Survivor Series, and Randy Orton is like the sole survivor on SmackDown, and SmackDown won the match, and like everybody's in the ring celebrating, and then just like the hooded black like figures showed up and just wheel a casket out, and then lightning strikes it, and then it catches on fire, and then Undertaker just like knocks down the door of the casket with like full facial hair for some reason. And he's just like, he destroys the entire SmackDown roster because he's the Undertaker and he's the ultimate monster.
Yeah.
I guess. To like get to Randy Orton, who just runs away. And it's like, It is my favorite casket moment.
I also just love a buried alive match that involves like a dump truck. Like there's something so specific about that imagery that like sticks with you. The unfortunate thing about like Inferno matches is that because monsters are so big and they need like a lot of space to work or be adequate, when you put them in a confined ring that is getting like more constrained because of fire, it's not the most exciting type of match because they're very limited with what they can actually do.
Yeah, I can see that. The only Inferno match that I remember is the MVP one.
Mm-hmm.
That I think MVP lost, and like he had like a gimmicked burn like on his entire back, or maybe it was real. I don't know.
I don't know. The Undertaker famously, during Elimination Chamber, was set on fire by his pyrotechnics. He had a conversation with the dude before who'd been doing it, and he was like, hey, those flames are getting like pretty close to me. Like, you might want to watch what you're doing. And the guy just kind of like, shrugged him off and was like, yeah, whatever. Like, I got this.
Oh, no.
And then before he went out into the ring, he had a bottle of water that he was going to take in there with him to drink because he was going to be in there for a while or whatever. And he just like decided to wet his hair with that bottle of water. And then he stepped out and the pyrotechnic like right in front of him like set his coat and his hat on fire. He was originally going to wear a different outfit and just happened to switch back to, the big leather trench coat because he was champion at the time. That's what it was. He had switched his outfit because he wanted to like show off the belt. And so it was like those two things kept him from being even more hurt than what he got from it. I think he ended up getting like 2nd-degree burns on his chest.
Yeah.
And you can see him like throughout the Elimination Chamber while he's in his like pod pouring water on himself, and like it's just getting increasingly red. Dude could have very easily died if like 2 or 3 things hadn't happened that night. Like if you watch that match, you can see him like running into the ring and like throwing his coat off and all this stuff, which is not how he does his entrance at all. Because, like we said, he plays it by the book, like sticks to that character so hardcore that he was struggling with like, okay, how do I put myself out of fire while also like not appearing to be freaking the fuck out? Which is just wild.
I feel like at that point you just say, fuck.
Fuck
like,
it, I can be Mark.
Work.
Like
yeah, fuck this Undertaker shit. I'm on fire right now. My name is Mark and I'm burning.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I don't know the result of that match, but I just like, after hearing that story, I was like, God damn, like, I can't imagine. I would be so, like, I don't know if I would, I think I might just retire then and there, or just like permanently cancel pyrotechnics for a good bit. I've had a picture of Gangrel just pulled up to the side here since we talked about him, and he's just staring at me with his tongue out.
I like vaguely remember. I think Gangrel had like a kiss tongue. He's got one of those kiss tongues that's just like abnormally long.
He's got it pierced. I can see that much. His very large hands too. Oh my god.
Because I know he walks with a limp, but he was smooth enough to where he could like walk with a limp and it like work with the character.
Mm.
Like if you've ever seen Gangrel come to the ring, he's just like holding his goblet of blood. Because he walked down to the ring with like a goblet, just like a pimp cup of blood. I'm just like, what? It's like, it just makes no sense. He just spits blood all over the audience. Just like, okay, well, that's just gross, but cool, I guess.
I also just want to like, he was not the biggest guy or like the most jacked by any means, but I feel like you can't have this conversation without also mentioning Mick Foley. who put in the work with like all of his different personas, Mankind especially. Like, you want to talk about dedication to the craft. Like, Mick Foley seems like a genuinely good dude on multiple accounts, and
Oh yeah.
he's just always so entertaining. He does like he is able to like flip that switch between like comical and scary so well that a lot of the times I feel like when they try to repackage a monster, it just doesn't usually work. Like, they're usually either too stiff or like they just end up kind of invalidating their previous efforts by like making them look silly.
I mean, one good example of that is Brodus Clay.
Oh God. Oh God.
I mean, the now very weirdly like
Also
right-wing-
conspiracy theory, like
Yeah. Tyrus is kind of a piece of shit. Brodus Clay was entertaining. Tyrus, kind of a piece of shit. But somehow NWA world champion.
That's...
But like, so they had like promo packages for weeks of like, oh, here comes this indestructible monster, Brodus Clay.
Hmm.
And then he comes out to Somebody Call My Mama doing
the T-Rex arms.
Yeah, the T-Rex
you
arms.
gotta get the
with
funkadactyls.
yeah, like two cheerleaders. They're just like, this isn't the monster we were looking forward to.
What's that TikTok sound? It's like, what happened to the plot?
It's like they gave us no explanation, but somehow even as the Funkosaurus, I had to think of what he was called. He was like an indestructible force for like the first part of like that thing.
Made it into the Scooby-Doo movie.
Oh God, I forgot about that. No.
Yep, that one had The Miz, AJ Lee, Kane was in it.
I'm pretty sure Cena's in that one.
Cena's in that one. He does. He has a he has a Chris Redfield boulder scene that is iconic. Oh God. Have you ever seen the second Scooby-Doo and WWE movie?
Is it the racing one?
It is the racing one.
I have.
The one where they completely like, oh, why is the Undertaker there? Why is he a silly guy with a car? Like,
it was wacky races, but with wrestling characters.
It's just like, God. And then what drives me fucking wild about that one too is we did an episode where I watched 50 Scooby-Doo movies and animated specials and then kind of ranked them, or at least like talked about my opinions on all of them, because once I start a project I can't finish, so I decided to watch all of the Scooby-Doo movies in like the span of a month and a half. What drives me fucking wild about that second one, in addition to it just like being so weird, is that like Triple H and Stephanie McMahon are revealed to be the bad guys, and then like as they're getting put in the police cars, they're like, oh, don't worry about it, we have money, like we'll get out of here in like 2 weeks. And so like, we've learned nothing, you've learned nothing, like this whole venture was pointless. And then Vince McMahon starts fucking singing the national anthem. Like, what is that? What? I don't understand.
Let this be a lesson, kids. Money solves everything.
I guess so. I've never watched Surf's Up 2, but I feel like it's very similar.
I'm like trying to remember who all the like drivers were. I remember Undertaker was a driver, and I know Cena was one, I think. But like, they had like a wild race.
I don't think he was in the second one because that's why they made Undertaker Shaggy's partner. I feel like.
Oh yeah.
Maybe Cena was too busy doing something. It had Miz and Maurice. Oh, Dusty Rhodes was in it. Oh, that's sweet.
Which means probably, what, Stardust and Goldust, maybe?
Yep, both of them are. Seamus is in it.
Oh my gosh.
Paige.
Oh no.
Michael Cole, Kofi Kingston, Rusev. I don't remember any of this at all.
I just remember the race, and it's baffling. Not to veer too off topic.
No, that's okay. That's the whole point of podcasts, I feel like.
But you mentioned Scooby-Doo and that you watched all the specials.
Yeah.
Did you watch the Supernatural crossover?
I did not watch that one because I had given up on Supernatural, I feel like, many moons ago. And so I have not watched that one.
I highly recommend it.
Okay.
Because it's just, it literally blows a hole in like the entire Scooby-Doo structure.
Oh, no.
It's just them just being like, oh wait, we already knew this. And like Sam will say something and they'll ignore Sam. And then the gang, like Fred and them, will like say the exact same thing. And Sam will just be like, I just said that. Velma has a crush on Sam. Just like, this is wild.
Of course. We can't. It's Supernatural. We can't pretend that Velma's a lesbian. We already have one of those.
Yeah. You're only allowed one lesbian per show.
And if you're gay, you go to Super Hell. I didn't watch the finale, but like that's about what I picked up from it.
I'm still like, I like petered off at the last season. For like 3 months, I was unemployed, and I was just like, I'm just gonna watch all of Supernatural.
You might as well.
Yeah, just like I managed to get through the majority of the seasons. I got to the last season, and then I got a job, so I still haven't like actually gained the will to sit down and finish Supernatural.
I think I probably stopped at like season 8 or 9.
I mean, how much do you care about Supernatural? You want me to, like,
no, please go. Please do, spoil ahead.
Because like out of all the enemies they face, their final enemy in Supernatural is God.
Who's just that author, right? Like what was his Chuck? Was that his
Chuck,
name?
Yeah, their final boss is Chuck. And apparently, I'm just getting way more off topic, but that's fine. There's this like being called a Nephilim, and he's like half angel because Lucifer like took over the body of the president of the United States and slept with his secretary, and like the secretary ended up having the baby. And over the span of like, I don't know, a couple of weeks, because that's how angels are born. And he grows up within like, I want to say a week, he becomes like a teenager or like a 21, like 19, 20, 21 years old. Like, and they're like teaching him, and like he becomes like a good guy, but God doesn't like it because he's equal in power. So like he kills him. And then they like resurrect him somehow. There's Supernatural goes very off the rails.
I thought Lucifer was trapped in their third brother that they forgot about.
Oh, he gets out.
Okay.
The brother also turns out to be kind of a bad guy, I think, too, somewhere down along the line.
Of course.
It's wild. It is interesting to just like know life Supernatural and just get super invested in it. But like in the grand scheme of things, when you stop watching Supernatural and like you're like near the end, just like, man, it's kind of goofy.
Yeah, no, it started off so Scooby-Doo. How could it end up like this?
But like the Scooby-Doo episode isn't even until like the second to last season when like shit's like hitting the fan and like, you know, like we're on like world ending things like every other episode, and there's just a random Scooby-Doo episode.
We need some levity. We need Eric Kripke said we've been going too hard on him. Warner Brothers needs to spend some extra money on Scooby-Doo, so here you go. Speaking of Scooby-Doo, another tangent. The full Scooby-Doo and Crypto 2 leaked the other day. It was one of those Scooby-Doo products that Warner Brothers was just not going to release for a tax write-off. But yeah, it is fully leaked on the internet. Hopefully we can get the same for Batgirl, maybe, because I would like to see that movie eventually.
I feel like they missed out on that, because that was the one that was going to have Michael Keaton Batman too, right?
Yeah, he was going to be in that one and Flash, and then it had Brendan Fraser.
Oh, yeah.
He was going to be Firefly, or I guess he was Firefly. Fully done movie, I think, and they're just not going to release it.
Because Warner Brothers makes good decisions.
Oh, they sure do.
Let's not release anything except for the Flash movie.
God, no. If you were going to cancel any project, like, let it be that one.
It looks fine, but also, it's Ezra Miller.
They already did an animated Flashpoint movie that kicks ass. Like, that one's so good.
Okay, I'm piling on top of your tangent.
Uh-huh.
Are you familiar with the like DC animated the movie universe?
Yeah, to an extent.
Okay, so that is probably for me like the pinnacle DC universe, because it wraps up kind of nicely and puts itself in a circle.
Uh-huh.
Because of the Flashpoint paradox, and it goes from like the Flashpoint paradox to like literally the end of the world, and like heroes are dead and like scarred forever.
Uh-huh.
I would highly recommend it.
I would say for sure that like DC has always had the better like animated movies, like compared to Marvel.
Oh yeah.
To tie it back to wrestling, did you know in the Scooby-Doo WrestleMania movie where they fight Kane at the very end, because it has Shaggy and the Inferno Bear or whatever it's called, the ghost bear that they're fighting with Kane. They are cutting to several audience shots of people like cheering on Scooby-Doo and Shaggy. And one of the scenes they cut to are the girls from Young Justice just like sitting around the TV, like watching WrestleMania. You have like Miss Martian, Huntress, and like all these other characters from Young Justice just like making a little cameo.
I did not know that.
Yeah. The Boogeyman came back in 2019 to win the 24/7 champion.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
The Boogeyman is a former 24/7 champion? Oh, gosh.
Who isn't these days?
I mean, part of me kind of wants them to bring it back because it was entertaining for what it was. But also, it was so bad.
It's just R-Truth's. It's just his.
It's the R-Truth title.
Who's a great comedic wrestler. And has been in the game since like the 90s, I think.
Yeah, he was around during the Attitude Era. I think he was there when TNA first started.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's like their like second champion or something, or like their first champion, or maybe he's like their first or second champion.
Mm.
And like he stays there for a bit. He forms a tag team with Road Dogg. And they're a rap duo.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I just remember that because they had the most obnoxious entrance theme.
Uh-huh.
And I want to say they were a tag team in WWE too after a while. Like when they came back, and like they left again, and they like formed like they then formed a 3-man rap group with Conan. It's like, this is so weird.
There's a very brief window in WWE where he was seen as like a legitimate threat and heel, and then it was just like, nah, he wants to be silly. Yeah, he can make a career out of that for sure.
He had like little Jimmy, who's just like the invisible embodiment of a fan that he just like yelled at, and then it became his friend.
I forgot about little Jimmy.
Yeah.
I forgot.
There's little Jimmy, and then there's the fountain drink cup of doom, where he would steal drinks from fans and like use them as weapons, and they were like actually pretty viable weapons for some reason. It's just like, I'm gonna hit you over the head with a soda.
God, wrestling's good. Wrestling. Where would we be without it?
I would be so bored.
I like that we have barely spent any time. We only mentioned Kane to talk shit about him.
Wait, is there a list of monsters you wanted to go through?
No. Vader was cool. He was a WCW champion. During a match, his eyeball popped out of socket, and he had to put it back in his head. Nasty.
I remember hearing about that, and I keep trying to imagine what that feels like, and also I don't want to imagine what that feels like.
It's gruesome.
Yeah.
The only reason Undertaker wore that mask for a little bit is because some legitimately broke his nose.
Oh, yeah. Because there was like a time back before Ministry of Darkness when he was just like goofy, purple gloved Undertaker, where he wore like a face thing because he like did something to his nose or something.
Before Glenn Jacobs was Kane, he played, what was his? Dr. Yankum. He played an evil
Isaac
dentist.
Yankum.
Isaac Yankum.
Yes. He was also Fake Diesel.
Yeah.
Was it? And Luke Gallows or Doc Gallows is Fake Kane.
Yeah.
Because there was the whole May 19th thing.
Right. I did. Wasn't that just like See No Evil? Is that what it was?
It was the release date for See No Evil.
That's what I thought. Because he had the chain, like the hook and chain that he would bring around, and it's like, don't say the date or you'll piss him off.
They tried to like add it to his mythos and just like, oh, something bad happened on May 19th. And like, I think at one point in time, it was hinted that was the day he set fire to his parents' home.
Right.
Or the Undertaker set fire to his parents' home. Their story's so confusing. But there's like this whole thing where like, I forgot who it was, but they kept on saying May 19th just to try and piss him off. He would just go berserk in the ring and just like murk people. It's so weird.
I think that is my second favorite iteration, just the shaved head Kane. I like it a little bit more than his newer mask, but I don't think you can beat that classic full body aesthetic that he used to have.
Oh yeah, I came into wrestling right around like shaved head Kane, and it was post baby kicking Kane. Speaking of monsters, there was him and Snitsky just, punting babies into the crowd and whatnot. He was an actual threat. Like, I don't think he really lost that many matches, if any.
No.
During that early 2000 run of bald Kane.
No, they've been super protective of those two characters, if nothing else, like Undertaker and Kane. I also just want to give a brief shout out to Sting, who I think for 18 months they were building him up to his match with NWO Hulk Hogan, and he was supposed to win at the pay-per-view, but then the day of, Hulk Hogan was like, I actually don't want to lose my title.
That's not gonna work for me, brother.
not gonna happen. And then changed his mind several times throughout the day, so that Sting's first appearance as his crow makeup and stuff, he lost. He lost after an 18-month campaign of big oh no, he's gonna give Hulk Hogan justice.
Brother, I think I want Sting to beat me. Or maybe I don't, brother. Or maybe I don't.
I don't know. They were supposed to have the referee count very fast so that it looked like Hulk Hogan maybe stole it. But then the ref didn't get the memo, so he did a regular count to 3. And then Bret Hart showed up and was like, no, this isn't correct. And he had a rematch, and Sting eventually won. But God, what a fucking mess WCW was there for a bit.
I mean, WCW gave us Disco Inferno, so I'm not really that optimistic about WCW.
If you haven't seen it, there's actually a very good documentary called "You Can't Kill David Arquette." So he was briefly WCW champion while he was promoting a wrestling movie that he had done, and people hated him for it because they thought it was a disgrace to the title. And so for years afterwards, David Arquette, who is like legitimately a huge wrestling fan, for years afterwards, like anytime somebody would talk to him about wrestling, like it was generally like, fuck you for doing this. He wanted to redeem himself in the eyes of wrestling fans. And so he put together a documentary that like films his entire journey. He goes to Mexico to get trained in like lucha libre style fighting, and then he does like extreme backyard wrestling.
What?
David Arquette like fucks himself up. There's one match that he did against, oh god, I can't remember his name now. Do you know the giant light bulb rods? He got one smashed over him, and a piece of it broke up and like lodged in his neck, and so he had to get like rushed to the emergency room. It's a solid documentary, and it really makes you feel for him. He talks about how like that reaction from the fans like contributed to his mental health. He's like trying to, come to terms with it and also be like, nah, I'm a real fan. It's just very good.
I have to check that out.
Yeah. The beginning, it starts off playing it off as like kind of jokey, and his gimmick when he first starts off is like the wizard, and he has this big purple robe, and like he takes cheesy promo photos with like lightning, like 90s Undertaker style lightning, like across.
Oh no.
Like, I had some anxiety going into this that we would like just be talking about like our favorite matches, and it would just be like verbal descriptions of like, oh yeah, and then there was this one match where this happened. And just like totally nonsensical to anybody listening. I've wanted to talk to somebody about wrestling for so long, so like I was genuinely excited when you were like, yeah, I'd do that.
I love talking about wrestling. Like 90% of my stream, like I have a mod that he hangs out, and he only comes in during like pay-per-views and will like tell me the results and stuff if I'm streaming. So like the past like 2 pay-per-views we ended up watching together, and like it was just like come in and we'll just talk about wrestling, and it confuses the rest of my chat because they're unfamiliar with everything wrestling. So
I loved like both of our reactions to realizing that the other was a wrestling fan, like legitimately trying to explain the custody of Dominic match.
Oh yeah. Yes, because in wrestling, you can fight for the custody of a child.
And it has repercussions 20 years later.
That's right. That child may turn up to be, evil. Currently.
I would die for Rhea Ripley.
I mean, yes, I too would also turn on my family for Rhea Ripley.
She's kind of a monster. She goes through monster-like phases for sure.
Yeah. I can see that. This is like, I'm trying to think of like women wrestler monsters.
Oh gosh, I can't remember what her name was outside of Karma.
Oh, yeah, Karma. I forgot about Karma.
Yeah.
Awesome Kong.
Yes.
When you talk about indestructible forces, TNA, Awesome Kong. So while WWE was doing their, bra and panties matches, Awesome Kong and Gail Kim were just like in TNA, just tearing it up, having these like really impressive matches. Like, this is pre-women's revolution, and like they're over here kind of blowing what goes on today out of the water. Like, they kind of paved way for that. Like, them, when Mickie James hopped over to TNA, Daphne, Roxy Laveau, Taylor Wilde. It was during the like in-between time where like a bunch of like the older WCW wrestlers were kind of going over to TNA to retire. And like, I know Daphne, she was in WCW. She went over to TNA and she did her thing there. And like, there were a couple other ones and they were just like tearing it up. And you had Awesome Kong, who was just this like final boss, undefeatable, like women's champion. And then you had like the like classic story of just like Gail Kim, like, and like Taylor Wilde at some points, like trying to take her down, but they're like, they're tiny and small, and Awesome Kong's like this like big hulking force. And like they got to get creative with it. It was really fun.
Yeah, if nothing else, like, monsters give great opportunities for those David and Goliath type stories, which I will always be a sucker for.
Oh yeah,
talking about Rey Mysterio, like, my dude can do no wrong except for that time when he came into the Royal Rumble instead of Daniel Bryan, but like, that's not his fault.
I was watching a video the other day of somebody like made a compilation of just Rey Mysterio taking the worst bumps.
Oh God.
Just in general. And there is one of like a while ago when he was feuding with the Big Show where Rey Mysterio's in like a stretcher or like one of those stretcher board things. Big Show like picks it up and just whacks it on the side of the ring.
Oh God.
Just like, wait.
I was watching the WWE Legends show, and they did an episode about the NWO, and they talked about there was an episode where they were like trashing stuff at like production trucks and whatever, and just like beating up superstars. And part of the gimmick was like fans couldn't tell if it was like part of the show or not. Like there was a whole aspect of the invasion storyline where it was like, this had never happened, so like, I don't know what the fuck is happening. But they talked about Kevin Nash just like picking up Rey Mysterio and chucking him into the side of a trailer. And then people were like calling the cops and being like, this dude looks seriously hurt. And they're like, no, we're doing a show here. Like,
he just lawn darts him into a trailer.
So good.
Rey Mysterio takes it like a champ. Nobody was like nice to Rey Mysterio. I think like the NWO made him unmask. Like they beat him and made him unmasked, and they were just like, you can put the mask back on, you're ugly. Just like, no. Oh my gosh.
It makes it legitimately like sometimes like bums me out because it's just like, hey, y'all don't have anything for Rey. Like you just keep like like you make his son attack him. Like he holds the WWE championship for like a day.
A night. He wins it and then immediately loses it.
Like come on. How are you gonna do this to my dude who's been in the industry fucking forever and is still like top of his game? I'm
waiting for them to like make the match for him and Dominic for Mania. Because like I want it to. It seems like they're building it up to happen. They just haven't announced it yet, and I think WrestleMania is 2 nights. I want to say. So, like, they gotta find, the good old filler matches.
Right.
And I kind of want one of them to just be finally Rey Mysterio versus Dominic. With, like, Michael Cole on commentary, because for some reason, Michael Cole just despises Dominic.
It's so funny.
Like, anytime he's out there, he's just like, look at this son of a bitch. He has no respect for his father.
He's never wanted for anything. He went to the best schools. And
Rey Mysterio's a legend. You asshole.
like, if nothing, we've gone completely off topic, but like, if nothing else, like, I love how quickly Dom like latched on to just like receiving the most heat from people. Like, his promos are still a little spotty sometimes, but like, oh my, when he is like basking in people booing him, like, you can tell that like he is having the time of his life.
Oh yeah, I think putting him with Judgment Day was the right move.
Mm-hmm. I don't think this will be Rey's retirement match. I think if they did that, they might want to go with like a more feel good route, because like it was very cool having them be like tag champs for a little bit. So like, I could see later down in the road Dom having like an actual like clean match with Rey and like making a moment of it. This will just be it'll just be nice to see Rey kick his son's ass.
Well, it's just like, so there's an old tweet. I want to say it was like WWE 12 or 13.
Yeah.
Where he tweets out is like, just got in a video game, can't wait to go home and beat my kids. It's like, oh my god, Rey Mysterio, no.
And Dominic has held on to that for 10 years. Oh my god.
You took me from my father, you beat me with video games.
Also, Bray Wyatt's gonna fight Bobby Lashley, I guess.
That feud makes no sense.
I don't know. They were setting up like a weird triple threat with him and Brock and Bobby, and then it's just like, surprise, here's Omos.
I don't know. I mean, speaking of monsters, I don't even know like who the bigger monster in that match is.
I don't know, because didn't he lose to Bobby Lashley? Like, wasn't that, or Braun Strowman? Like, was that was a very brief feud.
It's so confusing because like Bray Wyatt isn't the Fiend and he also isn't other Bray Wyatt. He's just Bray Wyatt. This will make no sense.
And Uncle Howdy's a thing, I guess. Did you? So Bray Wyatt had the Mountain Dew blackout match at Royal Rumble, right?
Oh, yes, the tripping hazard match. Yeah.
Yes. Did you see the clip where after he won, Uncle Howdy was supposed to dive into
yes,
fucking what's his name?
LA Knight,
and then just completely whiffs like.
I remember watching that live. Me and my buddy Rainfall, when I was talking about earlier, we saw that. It was like, he completely missed that. he missed that elbow drop. Like, they angled it to where like you couldn't see, but like you could definitely see.
It was the exact like wrong angle for like that suspension of belief. Like, oh my god. Thank you, Mosh, for agreeing to do this episode. I said we're one step closer to starting a podcast with just the two of us.
Can we just talk about wrestling all the time? Is that an option?
It's gonna happen eventually. This is our call for editors, because I just don't have I don't have the time to add a third project like that. I would love to. This is a ton of fun.
Oh yeah.
Was there anything that you wanted to like talk about before we super wrap this up?
Thank you for inviting me to do this.
Yeah.
I don't often get to delve into wrestling with buds like this deep, and it was greatly appreciated.
Yeah,
thoroughly enjoyed it.
What have you got going on? Where can people find you?
You can find me talking nonsense on Twitter at MoshPatt. You can find me talking nonsense in real life at twitch.tv/MoshPatt. I can't promise good content. I can only promise inappropriateness.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.
Bye.
You have been listening to Monster Masquerade. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to let us know somewhere on the internet and consider sharing the show with a friend. If you have a suggestion or topic you'd like to see us discuss, hop on over to our Patreon to unlock exclusive bonus content and do just that. And we'd super appreciate it if you could leave us a review on iTunes. It's the fastest way to help the show grow. You can find us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you find podcasts.